Let's be honest about something from the start. You've been taught that your pain is random, that suffering is just bad luck. You've been told to smile through it, distract yourself, or take a pill. And the worst part is that you've accepted this as normal, as if your suffering is just something you must endure. But what has ignoring your pain actually done for you? Has it made the sleepless nights shorter? Has it fixed the relationships that keep breaking in the same way? It has only made your suffering stronger and more controlling. Carl Jung understood this when he said, "What you do not bring to consciousness returns as fate." Look at your life. The same patterns of pain keep appearing. The partner who betrays your trust, just like the last one. The job that drains your spirit, just like the previous one. These aren't coincidences. They're messages written in the language of your suffering. When you ignore these signals, you become trapped in cycles of your own creation. The anxiety that wakes you at 3 a.m. isn't random. It's trying to tell you something. Your suffering carries information. Every relationship that ends for no reason, every burst of rage that seems to come from nowhere, these are breadcrumbs leading you back to parts of yourself you've abandoned. Most people treat their suffering like weather, something that happens to them, something they have no control over. They never realize they're holding the key to their own freedom. Your suffering isn't punishing you. It's trying to wake you up. You suffer not because of the world, but because you're living a life that isn't yours. Look closer. How many of your daily choices are truly yours? And how many are responses to what others expect? The life that makes you suffer is the gap between who you really are and who you pretend to be. This disconnection shows itself in your body first. The insomnia that leaves you staring at the ceiling. The tension headaches after family gatherings where you play your expected role. The constant exhaustion no weekend can cure. Your body knows when you're living a lie. Then come the emotional signs. That strange apathy toward things you used to care about. The guilt that follows you without reason. The sadness that washes over you in quiet moments. These aren't flaws. They're signals of conflict between who you show the world and who you truly are. Your behavior tells the same story. The self-sabotage just when things start going well. The attraction to people who can't love you back. The same relationship ending for different reasons that somehow feel similar. These patterns are unconscious attempts to make you see what you've been avoiding. Jung understood this internal division as a form of psychic fragmentation. When parts of your authentic self are rejected, they don't simply vanish. They become autonomous complexes operating outside your conscious control. These split-off aspects of yourself create what Jung called psychic entropy, the wasted energy of internal conflict that leaves you feeling depleted without understanding why. This energy drain is why living inauthentically is so exhausting, even when your external circumstances appear manageable. The persona, Jung's term for the social mask we wear, isn't inherently problematic. We all need adaptations to function in society. The suffering comes when this mask calcifies, when it becomes so rigid that your true self suffocates beneath it. Over time, this suffocation creates a specific kind of depression Jung called a loss of soul, not a chemical imbalance, but a spiritual disconnection from your own depths. You abandoned yourself to maintain an appearance. You silenced your intuition to keep peace. You buried your real desires because someone once told you they were wrong. You thought you were protecting yourself, but you were becoming your own jailer. This is what Jung meant when he said, "The greatest tragedy of the soul is to live a life that is not yours." When you live as a character in someone else's story, you will always suffer. Something in you keeps track of every self-betrayal, every ignored intuition, and that something doesn't forget. It simply waits, creating symptoms until you finally listen. This is where Jung's concept of the shadow becomes essential. Your shadow is the unconscious part of yourself. Everything you've rejected or denied, the anger you were told was inappropriate, the desires you were taught to be ashamed of, the vulnerability you learned to hide after being hurt, the ambition you downplayed to avoid making others uncomfortable. These rejected parts didn't disappear. They simply moved into the darkness of your unconscious. Think of it this way. For every quality you proudly display to the world, there's an opposite quality you've pushed into darkness. If you see yourself as kind and agreeable, your shadow holds your capacity for healthy anger and setting boundaries. If you pride yourself on being strong and independent, your shadow contains your need for connection and support. If you've built an identity around being rational and in control, your shadow guards your emotional depth and spontaneity. When you ignore your shadow, it doesn't disappear. It communicates through disruption. Those random emotional outbursts that seem to come from nowhere, That's your shadow speaking. The cruel comment that slips out when you're tired, shocking even you. Shadow. The instant dislike you feel towards someone who hasn't done anything wrong. That's your shadow recognizing something in them that you've rejected in yourself. The self-sabotage just when things are going well. Your shadow ensuring you don't outgrow the familiar identity you've created. Jung expressed this perfectly when he said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Every time you wonder, why does this keep happening to me? You're experiencing your unconscious directing your life. Every pattern of pain that repeats is your shadow trying to get your attention. The shadow is not your enemy. It is the part of your soul that has been exiled. Your denied anger doesn't vanish. It turns into passive aggression or physical illness. Your unacknowledged grief doesn't dissolve. It becomes depression or numbness. Your repressed creativity doesn't die. It transforms into criticism of others who express themselves freely. When you continue to reject your shadow, you project it externally. You see in others what you refuse to see in yourself. Your outer world becomes a mirror of your inner divisions, constantly reflecting back what you've tried to escape within yourself. This is why no amount of external change can end your suffering if the internal division remains. Healing begins not when you understand your shadow, but when you face it. This is the crucial difference between intellectual knowledge and transformation. You can read every book about Jung, understand every concept of psychology, and still remain trapped in suffering if you never actually confront what's hiding in your unconscious. Knowledge without action becomes another form of avoidance, a sophisticated way of keeping your pain at arm's length while pretending to address it. So how do you actually face your shadow? It starts with recognizing that the very things that trigger intense emotions in you are doorways to your shadow. That person who makes you irrationally angry, the situation that fills you with unexplainable dread, the criticism that wounds you far deeper than it should, these aren't random reactions. They're invitations to look at what you've been avoiding within yourself. Deep journaling is one of the most powerful tools for this work, but not the surface-level kind where you record the events of your day. Shadow journaling means asking questions like, what about this person threatens me? If this emotion could speak, what would it say? What part of myself am I seeing in this situation that I don't want to acknowledge? Write without filtering, without trying to sound wise or balanced. Let the raw, uncomfortable truth emerge on the page. Pay attention to your body during triggering moments. Does your throat tighten when you try to set boundaries? Does your chest constrict when someone praises you? Does your stomach knot when you're asked what you really want? Your body holds the truth your mind tries to avoid. These physical reactions are like compass needles pointing toward your shadow material. They're not problems to overcome, they're messengers to listen to. Consider working with a therapist who understands depth psychology. Sometimes we need a mirror to see what we can't see in ourselves. A skilled therapist doesn't just help you feel better temporarily. They help you see the patterns you've been blind to and face the parts of yourself you've been running from. If therapy isn't accessible, find a trusted friend who can listen without trying to fix you, who can ask questions instead of offering solutions. You might resist this work. That's normal. Your mind will generate countless reasons why you don't need to look deeper. I already know all this. My childhood wasn't that bad. Other people have real problems. I don't have time for this. Recognize these thoughts as defense mechanisms. Your psyche's attempt to maintain the status quo, even if that status quo includes suffering. The stronger the resistance, the more important the material you're approaching. Remember, pain is a warning, not a punishment. When you touch a hot stove, pain tells you to move your hand before serious damage occurs. Your psychological pain works the same way. It's not trying to torture you, it's trying to redirect you. This confrontation with your shadow will not be comfortable, but this discomfort is the price of liberation. Pain has a purpose. It guides you toward your real self. This isn't about pretending suffering is a blessing. It's about recognizing that your pain contains information about what you've outgrown, what you're missing, and what you need to become whole. Consider the person who constantly puts everyone else's needs first until they collapse from exhaustion. Their suffering is trying to show them that they've confused love with self-erasure. Their pain is a portal to caring for others without abandoning themselves. Or look at repetitive relationship pain. The person who keeps finding partners who betray their trust isn't just experiencing bad luck. Their suffering is revealing how they've internalized unworthiness, how they seek love from people who can't give it, because receiving real love would challenge their belief that they don't deserve it. Career emptiness follows the same pattern. The hollowness that comes from excelling at work you secretly hate is showing you where you've traded meaning for security, passion for approval. This pain is a portal to work that engages your whole self, not just the parts deemed practical by others. Every painful experience contains a message about your true needs. Anxiety isn't random. It's telling you where you've abandoned your boundaries. The imposter feeling isn't a glitch. It's showing you where you're living from an inauthentic self-image. Pain is not trying to break you down. It's trying to break you open. Breaking down leaves you smaller, more afraid. Breaking open creates space for something new to emerge, for parts of yourself you've never expressed to finally breathe. Most people either numb pain or wallow in it. Numbing takes many forms: addiction, distraction, workaholism. Wallowing looks like making pain your whole identity. Both miss the point. Pain isn't something to escape or embrace. It's something to translate. It's speaking a language you've forgotten, telling you truths you've buried. This translation requires presence, the courage to feel pain fully without being consumed by it. It requires curiosity, asking what this specific suffering is showing you. And it requires honesty, seeing when you've been complicit in your own pain through denial or unhealthy patterns. Jung called this journey individuation, becoming your full, integrated self. This isn't some abstract concept. It's the psychological process that frees you from suffering by ending the war within yourself. Individuation means reclaiming all the parts you've disowned and building a life that expresses your complete being, not just the acceptable parts. Individuation requires a shift in how you relate to yourself. Instead of fighting your shadow, you get curious about it. Instead of treating pain as an enemy, you see it as a teacher. Instead of splitting yourself into good and bad parts, you recognize that wholeness includes everything: your light and your darkness, your strength and your vulnerability. This shift doesn't happen overnight. It's a spiral path that revisits similar themes at deeper levels. The same issues may arise repeatedly, but each time you approach them with greater awareness. What once devastated you eventually becomes just another opportunity for integration. When you commit to this path, external validation becomes less important. You stop needing everyone's approval because you've stopped rejecting parts of yourself. You become less reactive to criticism because you're no longer using others' opinions to determine your worth. You develop an inner stability that doesn't depend on circumstances. This inner coherence shows up in tangible ways. You develop authentic self-expression, speaking truths that might have terrified you before. You establish clear boundaries without guilt, recognizing that protecting your energy isn't selfish, but necessary. You experience inner peace amid external chaos, not because you've escaped the world, but because you've stopped fighting yourself. Think of it like an orchestra. You've been trying to play a symphony while half the instruments were locked away. Some were too loud, some were completely silenced, and the conductor was fighting with the musicians instead of coordinating them. Individuation means unlocking all the instruments and conducting the entire orchestra in harmony, honoring the distinct voice of each part. This creates a profound shift in how you experience life. Problems don't disappear, but they stop defining you. Pain doesn't end, but it no longer controls you. You develop the capacity to hold contradictions, to be both strong and vulnerable, both independent and connected, depending on what the situation truly calls for, rather than what your rigid self-image permits. Individuation isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming more real, more honest, more whole. It's about expanding your capacity to embrace the full spectrum of human experience. And in that wholeness, you find the freedom that no external circumstance can give or take away. Now that you're aware, you must choose. This is the decisive moment where knowledge must become action. Many people reach this point of understanding. They see their patterns, they recognize their shadow, they understand the messages in their pain, and then they stop. They collect insights like souvenirs, but never actually use them to change their lives. They become experts in explaining their suffering without ever moving beyond it. This is the greatest trap on the path to freedom, mistaking awareness for transformation. Knowing why you suffer doesn't automatically end your suffering. Understanding the roots of your pain doesn't instantly heal the wound. These insights are not the destination, they are the map that shows you where to go next. And the territory itself can only be traveled through choice, through action, through the daily decision to live differently than before. Here's an empowering truth that changes everything. You don't need to heal completely to be worthy of love. Many people postpone living fully until they've fixed themselves, until they've resolved every issue, until they feel whole and perfect. But this approach gets it backward. You don't heal first and then live. You heal through living differently. You heal by making choices that honor your authentic self, even while parts of you are still wounded. You heal by practicing boundaries even when it feels uncomfortable, by expressing needs even when it triggers fear, by allowing joy even when part of you feels undeserving. The pain was not a punishment, it was a calling. It was life itself trying to guide you back to wholeness through the only language strong enough to get your attention. Every relationship that broke your heart was showing you where you needed to love yourself. Every rejection that wounded you was revealing where you had already rejected yourself. Every failure that devastated you was pointing to where your true path diverged from the one you thought you should follow. Your suffering ends when you reclaim the parts you've abandoned. Not when circumstances change, not when other people treat you better, not when you finally achieve some external goal, but when you stop the internal abandonment that has been driving your pain all along. When you embrace your anger as the guardian of your boundaries, when you welcome your grief as evidence of your capacity to love deeply, when you accept your fear as the companion to everything meaningful you'll ever do, the greatest resistance you'll face now isn't from the world but from within. Part of you will fight to maintain the familiar, even if the familiar includes suffering. Part of you will prefer the pain you know to the freedom you don't. This resistance shows up as procrastination, as sudden fatigue when you approach important changes, as picking fights that distract from deeper issues, as the voice that whispers, "Do this later," when you're more ready, when it's easier. Recognize these as the final defensive maneuvers of the fragmented self that fears integration. These hesitations don't mean you're doing something wrong, they mean you're getting close to something real. The stronger the resistance, the more important the change you're approaching. Don't wait for the resistance to disappear before you act. Move forward with it, through it, carrying it with you if necessary. This is how you become the person nothing and nobody will ever suffer again. Not by achieving some perfect state where pain never touches you, but by developing a relationship with yourself so whole, so honest, so integrated that pain can move through you without destroying you. Where triggers become invitations instead of traps. Where old wounds inform your wisdom rather than dictate your choices. Where the parts of yourself you once exiled become the very strengths that set you free. Don't stop with insight, act. Start small if you need to. Set one boundary today. Express one authentic need. Question one limiting belief. Release one expectation that was never yours to begin with. The path of individuation isn't walked in giant leaps, but in consistent steps, each one bringing you closer to the freedom that has been waiting within you all along. This is the responsibility that comes with awareness. The commitment to no longer be a passive observer of your suffering, but an active participant in your liberation. Share in the comments one pattern of suffering you're ready to transform. Not just understand, transform. Name it clearly, claim it honestly. There's power in declaring your intention, in making visible what has operated in shadow. And know that in doing so, you join countless others on the same journey. If these ideas resonate with you, if you feel that quiet recognition that comes when truth meets truth, subscribe to join this exploration of what lives beneath the surface. Here we speak about the depths that most fear to enter, about the freedom that waits on the other side of confronting your own darkness. I leave you not with empty wishes, but with the certainty that what you've avoided contains exactly what you need. The shadow you fear holds the missing pieces of your power. The pain you've run from carries the message that will set you free. Nothing and nobody will ever suffer you again when you finally stop suffering yourself. And that liberation begins the moment you turn toward what you've been running from with open eyes and a willing heart.